All right, listen. I'm taking a minute so that I can have a conversation with y'all. Um, I tried to plan this as effectively as possible, right? Like, so I went to the gym already. It's late, right? But usually, like, I'll be wrapping up for the day, and then I will go to the gym now, and like, then the night be over. And this is where I make my mistakes. But I got homework that has to be submitted by tomorrow, and I'm optimizing today because I did one move a little bit better. But I'm not here to give y'all an update. I'm actually here because I want to have a conversation with y'all real quick. Um, I am here and like getting all of the dialogue or the rhetoric around J. Cole, Jay Z, and culture and the rap battle and everything else, and all of the conversation around the perception that it's people find it interesting that people are throwing bail, like, or throwing bail for like Drake, or whatever the case might be. It's this whole thing. It's this whole thing, right? Like, big fucking deal. But anyway, I'm gonna start with the first part of this conversation. So let me prelude with one. I am a J. Cole fan. Y'all, I hope y'all can't see my desk because it's actually a mess. One, I'm a J. Cole fan. Two, I'm a Jay Z fan. Um, Three, my favorite genre of rap, rap nigga, anything like that is gonna be the nigga that got his shit together. And like, my favorite part of both of those conversations is them speaking like men and talking about like, yeah, my wife, my kids and stuff like that. That excites me. That makes me happy. That's a whole different conversation. But first and foremost, like, if you are not a J. Cole fan, or better yet, if you are a Kendrick fan, I'm going to prelude that you're probably not going to like my conversation. So I implore you, just turn it off. Because we're coming in hot, I think that Kendrick is a bitch. And I'm going to tell you why I feel like that. Like, not a bitch in the sense of having a pussy, but a pussy having no goddamn sense. No, I'm just playing. But listen, I'm saying it from a place of like, I'm gonna be very honest. I did a video about them too beforehand where I kind of compared them to Sasuke and Naruto. And I think that what I'm seeing happen now makes my perspective, it solidifies my or confirms my bias of Kendrick. And I always had this idea where I'm like, you know what? He's not necessarily my favorite, but I'm like, you know what? Cole, fuck with him. He cool. It's not a big deal. And again, I always chucked it up to like maybe it's some West Coast, East Coast shit where like deep down I grew up in Brooklyn. Fuck West Coast niggas. Like something stupid. Like I kept saying like, oh, it's me, it's me, it's me. But in this space and time right now, where I look at the fans and the people of Kendrick Lamar, and specifically, and I hate to say it like this, understand y'all, I'm just talking smack. This is not intended to be like an absolute violation to anybody, but I'm just saying how I feel as raw as I feel it. So when it come out, if you offended, my bad. Like I'm not really trying to violate, but I gotta be honest, right? So I'm saying that as I listen to somebody like Glasses Malone have conversation about the J. Cole Kendrick Drake situation and the conversation around culture, I really can't help but feel like it was two things. I'm like, yo, you can't be listening to Kendrick's music if you still talk like this. But then I'm like, now I feel like he might. Now I'm lying. I still don't really think that he does. I still don't really feel like he's enmeshed into what he's doing. I feel like he is embracing Kendrick from a place of proximity more than agreement in ideology 100% of the time. And it's not to say that you're supposed to agree 100% of the time. It's like, I really do wonder what's the threshold of how much of the things or conversations that they have and perspectives of growing up together do they actually share? And not growing up together as in they grew up in the same hood per se, because I'm not positive, but growing up from similar backgrounds and so on and so forth. How much of this do they actually have in common? Because the way that Glasses talk and the way that people talk about Kendrick, I'm getting a little disconnect here. But I am not going to have too many conversations from too many perspectives because I feel like it could very quickly get complicated. I could see that I'm going to do a series of videos or conversations around these interviews in particular because I feel like so much of it has bubbled up something of value. But what I'm going to start with here first is this notion of culture. And there's two parts kind of how I want to take a look at this, where Jay-Z is having this conversation in particular. I'm going to try to link like the videos and things like that. And I encourage people to go and watch the videos. Like, please, under no circumstances, if you come across me, you see me talking about this. If you did not watch those videos in entirety, don't make commentary in a space of absolutism. We can have a conversation of disagreement in a respectful, non-defamatory, non-shit-talking kind of way. Because there's a reality around the fact that I understand that the internet really be having people like mustering up some extra shit that they usually don't have outside. Please watch how you talking to me, talking about me, anything like that, if it were to come to that. But again, there is space, room, and opportunity for us to disagree. And when I have conversation about Kendrick fans, and so on and so forth, this is not a blanketed statement. This is my opinion, and this is in the perspective of what is or who is a part of staying culture and who is speculating the culture versus actually living and existing in the culture and giving a perspective that is valuable, universal, and useful. You understand what I'm saying? So hear me out, hear me clear, keep up with me, and I'm going to speak in a lot of different facets, right? Like you might hear me go from really, really on some ghetto shit to being practically spiritual to being a little bit psychoanalytical. And I'm gonna try my best to keep perspectives in alignment so that I'm just not all over the place. This is kind of my hypervigilant ADHD brain. I don't think I have ADHD, but that's besides the point. Let's go back to this whole shit with these two. Jay-Z's having this conversation, and he's having a conversation about the pillars of hip hop, and the conversation gets to this point of him saying that he does not believe that battle rap is a necessity for hip hop and rap as we see it today, right? There is a lot of nuance in this conversation, and I'm already watching people watch the clips and decontextualize what was said and actually change words that Jay-Z used, and in essence change the entire meaning of what he's saying. And as I'm watching this happen, and I'm saying to myself, like, bro, you are literally decontextualizing. So we have people like, I want to say Loaded Lux had a conversation, and it was somebody else because I was watching like Chiggs or something like that, just to get some perspective. Joey Badass that came out and had something to say, talking about niggas don't want to put niggas on records and all types of stuff. It's this whole thing. So in the spirit of him talking about the four pillars of hip hop, he brings up MC. Well, he said breakdancing. He said battle rap, graffiti, and something else that I can't think of because my brain is already racing. All of that to say, I was watching Rob Markman and he talked about the battle rap. And what I say is that when Jay-Z mentioned battle rap, it was a previously recognized as MCing, and the fourth one is DJing, right? So it was previously recognized as MCing. So when he said battle rap, he's saying that breakdancing, DJing, graffiti, all of those things have kind of shifted away from mainstream hip hop as we see it today, right? And this is me interpreting what he's saying. So, and this is why I want people to go and watch it so that when we have a dialogue with niggas engaged in the comment section, it's not coming from I'm just pulling this out my tail. So he's talking about it and he's mentioning the fact that as we walk away from all this stuff and we get into the space of social media where things have capacity to be bubbled up in a way that we've never seen before. The notion that battle raps can now be character assassination, right? So this kind of, and this is tough because I think what's happening is that people don't like the idea of Jay-Z having this conversation and J. Cole having this conversation, and there is breadth and depth or validity around the lawsuit that Drake is presenting. And I think that that's what's getting people like, nah, nigga, don't do that. Like, this is what I'm imagining. I can't say that for a fact because I don't think that anybody has vocalized that quite yet. But as I'm listening to the vitriol, I'm like, I think that this is what people got a problem with. That they're saying somehow conflating that Drake is now justified in his position or in his opinion. But I digress. Going back to Rob Markman said that it wasn't that it was battle rap that was a part of hip hop. He said, but there was always battle or competitiveness in each pillar of hip hop. So when you had graffiti, like hoods used to tag spots. Like when I was a kid, like I remember like Crips used to tag all over Canarsie, right? I remember Bloods coming out and Xing stuff out, carving out the C's or whatever the case might be. Like this was a thing. And as he said it, he was like, yeah, think about breakdancers. Like, yo, they used to breakdance. You think about you guys serving. I'm like, oh shoot. Like I did not think about it. But again, this is the difference between niggas that grew up and watched it change over time. And depending on when you was born and when you showed up, your interpretation or your representation of hip hop, how you see it, how you value it, what it means to you looks a little bit different. And he said, in essence, battling has always been in that. And so as I sat with that concept, I'm like, what's crazy? I'm like, the idea of it is that people battled because they was always looking to get to that number one spot. It was a means to an end. And I grew up, I told y'all before, I mentioned it before, like I was not always like, it took me a long time to even understand rap, to be able to listen to rap and it makes sense. Like the first album I remember listening to was the Black Album, For Real, For Real. It might have been Get Rich or Die Trying, but I have to really go back and look at the years that they came out so that I could tell you like, oh, I understood. But I remember Jay-Z's Black Album. Like I remember my brother going and getting Blueprint 2 and all that other stuff. I remember Still Mad. I remember them things being like the illest, the hypest things, whatever the case might be. And niggas like used to run around like talking to each other one on one. So another important part of this story that I'm telling y'all is the fact that I grew up in the projects. Like I grew up, I spent the first half of my life in the P's. Full stop. This is going to be important later. Keep it in your back pocket. So inside of talking about this, I remember niggas growing up like, and these things, just like learning a sport, was a part of what was going to get you from this point to the next point. So battling or competitiveness was a means to an end. And there was this idea of being perfect enough or going hard enough or being thirsty. So like when you watch, my brothers used to say it all the time. He's like, yo, when you watch college football, you could see the hunger on these niggas because they understand there's but so many spots. So you gotta go hard. And so inside of hip hop, we have that same kind of mindset still pushing forward. So while graffiti, breakdancing, and all this other stuff, and it's not that dance is not still of value, but we watch people all the time on social media like, oh, when the rap girls do it, they got to dance and this, that, and the other because they can't rap for real. Like we watch it get weaponized. And this is the conversation that they have. And essentially that the relationship between stan culture, the normalization of a little bit of mania and psychosis in the fan bases, it's so normal that it's actually disruptive to people's careers. Inside of recognizing that, the conversation that Jay-Z is having is related to stan culture. We're now watching people that's watching the big three go through whatever it is that they're going through, disqualify, determine who's qualified, who's representatives of the culture, who's this, who's that. And this is the other part of the conversation that I think is important. Because now that we've understood that the competition was based in a means to an end, and I don't think that it needs to go away, but I think that it needs to be spirited and it needs to still be safeguarded. But what's happening is that people aren't digesting or ingesting the art for what it is worth. We are now doing character assessments on rappers when we want to disqualify them, but somehow, some way, R. Kelly still comes back up, vibing through the music. When it's that stuff, we can separate the art from the artist. But in this instance, whenever we get good and ready, we have morality and we're fucking jumping down people's back and saying who don't deserve what for whatever reasons they don't deserve it. It's some virtue that they otherwise don't give a shit about because it shows up in a bunch of other places and they don't practice that same kind of nitpicking, if you will. Again, I digress. Going back to the experience or the prospect or perspective of the culture, as a nigga that grew up in the P's, one of the things that used to really, really be phenomenal to me, that was strange to me, was the amount of niggas from the PHs that wanted to be a part of the projects. And when I say the PHs, we called private houses, right? So, there's this thing with block busting and all that other shit. So, if you lived in a house that was across the street, like there was a perception of wealth and you was getting to it because you wasn't in the projects, you was across the street from the projects. Now we understand that don't really make a difference. That don't really mean nothing. So it's like, we get that now because they used to want to mingle, right? Like these motherfuckers used to want to come to the building so that they could get head on Pebble Beach. I'm like, yo, my nigga, like you have a crib. Your parents is at work. You have your own bedroom. Why do you want to be inside of the piece? Because it was this perspective of camaraderie and grit and fucking just, we found value in one another. So because we came together, they would see us in this act, in this experience of unity and making the best of it and resourcefulness. They admired that shit. They thought that shit was cool. And so when I hear niggas say shit like a Glasses Malone talk about like niggas is not of the culture, I'm like, yeah, bro, like you're dead ass wrong. And the reason why this is an important part of the conversation, because those people are a part of the culture. Because as a nigga that grew up in the projects, that has friends that's still in jail, that has lost friends that I've outgrown, family members that I've outgrown because they passed away as kids, yet like, they're a part of the cultures. The onlookers that told us we were valuable, they kind of still count. And guess what perspective of the big three captures the onlookers of the hood. And I didn't realize this until I thought about the niggas that I know that actually like the nigga Drake. Hear me when I tell you, I am not a fan of Drake. I said this in a previous video. I stopped fucking with that nigga when he came out with the song Started from the Bottom. Because I felt like it was very disingenuous for this nigga to say that he started from the bottom and now he's here and this motherfucker was on a TV show as a kid. I'm like, yo, bro, your started from the bottom was possibly being ostracized as a light-skinned black boy amongst white people. That to me don't effing count, bro. My started from the bottom includes growing up in the projects, not having enough underwears, not having a bedroom, being old enough now to buy all of my own shit, have a fucking king size bed, lead estate, all types of shit. That's a different kind of grit and treachery you got to work through psychologically for you to be in a space to actually exist comfortably and do shit like sit here and have conversations about where I've been and where I'm still trying to go. But that doesn't mean there aren't niggas that lived cushy kind of lives that wanted to be as tough as the niggas that they seen in the hood. And I said, you know what? That's a valid perspective. And I think further, I'm like, well, let me look at it all the way across. When we think about why I like J. Cole, I could give you that. When this motherfucker did his song and he's talking about the dude that he grew up with that ended up being like DL and went to Atlanta and started prostituting and passed away, and he's like, yo, I wish that we could have went back and had a conversation with that nigga so he knew that we loved him, but we grew up in homophobic times and that was a reason to disqualify friends. Let's fucking talk about that. Because as a young nigga that grew up, again, in the projects most of my life, one of the block-busted niggas, right? One of the niggas that grew up on the block. Cool as shit. He was obviously gay, but it wasn't safe, it wasn't cool, it wasn't regular to have a conversation about being gay. He chilled with all the girls, he wanted to write well, he jumped rope with us. This was our nigga for real, but there was still something to be said about him being a homosexual. And let me fucking tell you, grew up, bro, posted on the internet. For all the niggas that did this to me when I was young, venting. And when he said it, I got real self-conscious, like, yo, was I good to this nigga? I don't know if I was good to this nigga. Hear me when I tell you I had to check in. And I went underneath his post and I was like, yo, listen, if there was ever a time that I made you feel a certain type of way, yo, my sincerest apology. I'm truly sorry because I never want that to be a reality. That motherfucker said, you was one of my favorite people. I look forward to it. It's like, bitch, I still watch you. Like, you still my bitch. And that gives me ease. But I watch people take that conversation and say, oh, he's trying to what? He's having a conversation that people genuinely fucking go through. But because he's not a cool nigga, he can't have a conversation, right? So let's get to Kendrick. And I watch people like go off and like, yeah, nah, we not fucking with Cole. He apologized, he this, he that. Cool. Niggas sat back. Cole fans sat back. They like, yeah, it's cool, it's whatever. Nigga dropped the fall off. What we talking about? 100 and something thousand physical album sales? 120 something thousand? 280,000 first week? Sound like a pretty good demand to me. But I digress. You know, that apology shit is corny. That's this, that's that. All the niggas that I could bet money ain't never been through shit, ain't never been about shit, is talking shit. Cool. But then I sat with that. And especially a nigga like Glasses, who gave Drake the bad advice. Yo, you might as well send shots at Cole. He ain't gonna say nothing. You might as well you want some culture back, you want some cash back, you want some this. And then when Drake went ahead and decided to drop his little snippet or whatever, what happened? Niggas called him corny for that. Yeah, but the culture man gave you that advice. So the more I sit with it, I'm really trying to understand. I'm like, yo, what is Kendrick bringing? Because I was like, I don't know if Kendrick and Cole is the same nigga, and most people would argue that they're not, even though a lot of their topics overlap. Sat with that for a minute. I'm like, let me make that make sense. I'm like, niggas don't forgive Cole. I said, Glasses is talking, but I'm like, hold on a second. I'm like, didn't Kendrick work with niggas that was going to rob his pops or some shit like that? Like, so I had to go and look that up. I go look it up and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. He did put this in a song. As a matter of fact, the founders The label that he signed to was running around sticking niggas up. Pause. Running around, running down on niggas in the hood. And what happened was is that the story goes is that Kendrick's pops would just charm them with food because his pops worked in KFC. So when they ran up on him, he was like, "Yo, let me just take care of y'all." So I'm like, "Hold on." Kendrick's pops was paying a hood tax with fast food? So I'm like, "Hold on, I'm sorry." And then Kendrick signed to them niggas and made them niggas wealthy and made them like popular, well recognized. And I say, yo, if you ask me, I don't know no niggas in my hood that was running around like I don't know no niggas in my hood that was doing business with grimy, greasy niggas. I don't know no niggas like that. Speaking of culture, I don't know the culture that includes like, yeah, getting the business with the niggas that was about to rob your pops. That's an interesting story. Now, hear me when I tell you, this is not by any means of what I have to say. Like, I'm glad that Kendrick had the capacity to do that. Hear me when I tell you, like I said in the beginning, my favorite genre is always going to be niggas that got the fuck out and became better people. But then it made me think about what kind of nigga Kendrick actually is. And the thing that keeps ringing off in my head is when the nigga was doing the Super Bowl conversation and bro said, I studied the art of war. And just as I had that recollection, I said, oh, this is a keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer type of nigga. And then I started to think to myself, what if Kendrick and Drake are similar in nature? They keep certain niggas around them because it's like, yeah, like I might need them for something. The difference is their spectrum of blackness, right? Who we gonna accept as you cool and you not cool? And like Charlemagne said, right? This is the dark skinned cocoa butter nigga, right? Drake is the beige nigga. Cause I don't want to hear everybody like, oh, he acting. I'm watching niggas make jokes, light skinned jokes. And it's so funny to me because like somebody else said something like, oh, here J. Cole go with the mulatto trope. And I said, every chance y'all get, y'all niggas find another problem to have. And I said, that's so funny to me. Because like I'm black, I'm fully black. But we got colors in my family. My brother is similar to like the J. Coles and Chris Browns of the world, right? A tall light skinned nigga. You know how many niggas my brother has had to slap the shit out of because they say this nigga's tall and light skinned for no reason. He big and light skinned for no reason. He big tall, he light skinned for no reason. And mind you, my brother's not a small. We are. They used to call my brothers dinosaurs. We a two something type of family. We all big as hell. That motherfucker was in high school. Motherfuckers is like taking his shit. He got to run down on niggas, slap niggas, cause niggas is like, oh, he light skinned, he ain't gonna do shit. But then when J. Cole rap about being light skinned, the niggas mocking him because he light skinned, niggas wanna act like he's making that. I feel like I guess my question for this whole thing is, what's y'all psychopathology behind the justification for Kendrick working with the niggas that was gonna rob his pops, but he worked with them, made money with them, versus J. Cole who said that this is my man's and I'm not ever gonna talk shit or let some shit like this roll out the way that it is. Like what's the difference? And I would love to hear a little bit more about that. But this is only part of it. The other part of it is when we're talking about perspective, right? And the importance of understanding the value of vantage points. That the hood is not a singular experience. And this is the part of the conversation, and I mean this with love. In case this happens to go anywhere, my intention is not to shit on nobody, but to have this conversation like an adult. Like, trauma disables your ability to recognize other or ulterior perspectives. So when somebody like Glasses comes in and says, yeah, this is the culture, with all due respect, sir, your way of viewing the culture is not the culture, because there are a tremendous amount of people that experience the culture. And like Cole said back on his joint in 1985, they want to be black and think your song is how I feel. There is plenty of onlookers that want to know what it's like to walk in our shoes. And this is how come rap grew as much as it did and became the big three in the first place. And this was the conversation that I believe that Jay-Z was having when he said, I don't think that hip hop can survive the critique, the breakdown, the destruction that comes with social media, because now it's turning back into low level battle rapping. But it makes me think, with all due respect, that was Kendrick's plan. Hear me when I tell you, when this nigga Cole was talking about having them niggas on the album and Kendrick, when like that verse came out, maybe it was just circumstances, it was timing. But the fact that both of you niggas was on his proposed retirement album and you thought that was the role, and I'm watching niggas say, yeah, Cole was talking shit on first person shooter. We're not gonna rewrite history, bro. We're not going to act like first person shooter was ever a fucking jab at anybody. Them niggas was rapping and it was good rapping. Nobody thought that Kendrick was getting the shot. Everybody saw that the nigga Kendrick was getting love. It didn't change nothing. Nobody was looking at Drake funny. Nobody was acting weird about that nigga. None of that shit. Not from fucking first person shooter. We're not going to rewrite history on that shit. The fact that the nigga Cole had the nigga in the studio, was working with this nigga, and this is how he moved after he left. I said, oh, no. This is not regular hating shit. This is a nigga that is the king of chaos. What they say in The Dark Knight, some niggas want to see the world burn. Yes, this is who that nigga is. I'm like, oh, you trying to set it up so you the only one in the last one, huh? That's what I'm getting. That's how come you were so offended by the biggest the what? Had to be. Because there's no other reason for all the weird shit. But I digress. I'm going too far left. Going back to the point of perspectives. An important part of the inner city, right? Because I say that because the projects is typically, or the hood or the ghettos that we understand will be typically something like the inner city, low income inner city. When we talk about the inner city as it relates to the population of just the United States, because I thought that I could get regional, but I felt like it wasn't valuable when we're talking about what hip hop has become on scale, right? This is an international thing. But for the sake of this discussion, I'm going to focus on the United States. And inner city, urban culture, as I've heard Glasses refer to it, represents about 80% of the population. Like most 80% of the population, most people exist in some version of an inner city, an urban style culture. Do you want to know how much of that culture represents low income? 14. And this is why rap that's too gritty, this is why there is an underground rap circuit. Because there's a version of rap that can't rise to the stardom that we've seen in the big three. You want to know why? It's an unrelatable perspective. That's what we call that. So the reality of it is the numbers that Drake has done make sense because there are more people with their binoculars on trying to see the experience of the inner city and might not feel capacitated or desired in living that life, walking that route. Kendrick Lamar understands that there is an important part of representing the people that are from there. But he also understands that there's a bunch of people that have no idea what this is actually like. But more importantly, and this is where my nigga come in, there's Cole. And this is where him and Kendrick got some overlap. There's that version of you. I'm a sidewalk nigga. I'ma stay there. Like, nah, that shit leave the streets for the niggas that wanna play there, nigga. There's a whole group of us that went in that shit, and we are literally fighting for our lives, going from a po nigga to a comfortable one, who are fighting to go from being abandoned by your fucking parents to being an adult that can take care of themselves, and you not dealing with the insecure attachment that comes from not being able to trust people from so young. Going from being a nigga that didn't have a bed to sleep on to being a nigga that make a couple hundred thousand a year. There's something about that. There's something about our capacity to go from being a low income person to being middle class. And there's something about this nigga Cole where he's having a conversation like, yeah, you start making it. You think that that shit is gonna, but nope, it's not how that go. It's not how that go. When you're constantly inside of your head, you're constantly reflecting on the type of person that you are. You constantly want to be better than you was. And some of us never developed the mechanism or the muscle to say like, yeah, y'all done enough. Y'all, I'm good enough. I'm cool. Like, y'all, I'm great. How do you learn to be better once you get comfortable? To keep going even though you got what you need. Like, nah, nigga, you could do more. Yeah. It's a whole nother position. So I say that to say, the culture that we exist in is not one point of view. Stop telling people that. I grew up, my neighbor ain't been in the hood for damn near 20 years. Damn near 20 years. This motherfucker been in jail since I left the hood. But niggas want to talk about culture. You talking about the shit that was literally eating it. That same nigga that I'm talking about now, yo, he watched one of our friends. He held one of our friends in his arms when he passed away, nigga, because the niggas ran down on him. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? Niggas that don't even be in the mix, that just chill and is cool with niggas, really got offed just because they was around the wrong niggas at the wrong time, bro. What are we talking about? That's the hood, bro. You want to talk about culture? Yeah, that's the underbelly of the beast, bro. Stop getting on this here internet and then it's like it's all of this gassing and this bot talking. And then that's another thing. Niggas talk about it. If we had to go outside and throw hands and I got options in the big three, I know who I'm choosing. I'm out of here, bro. Bye.